The 2018 Stanley Cup Playoffs are officially on. 16 teams, 4 rounds, 1 Stanley Cup champion. Who is it going to be this year? Johnny Talk Sports here to provide you with my 2018 Stanley Cup Playoff Predictions. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into this. But before I get to that, please don't put in the comment section who I have winning these matchups or who I have winning the whole Stanley Cup in June. Please don't put that in the comment section, as there have been people that have been looking forward to this all season long. And it's really disrespectful to those people. So please don't be the guy that comments every single thing I say in here in the comment section. So let's get it on. We're going to start off with the Western Conference. The Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I'm a big fan of this series. We got the Nashville Predators, who just a year ago, they were the last team in the playoff. And now, they're the President's Trophy champions. And they're going up against the Colorado Avalanche, who the Avalanche are in familiar territory where the Predators were last year. As the Avalanche were one of, if not the worst team in the NHL last year. And what a difference a year makes. But unfortunately, I don't think the Avalanche have a chance in this series. I think the Predators could actually sweep them. But I'm going to say Nashville in 5. I think the Avalanche probably win game 3 or 4 to keep their season alive for about 1 game longer. But I think that home ice of Nashville is going to prevail them in this series. Predators in 5. Next, we have the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. And I'm taking the Winnipeg Jets in 6. This is kind of one that's a little bit of a toss-up for me because I don't know really much about these two teams whatsoever, but I'm just picking Winnipeg in this one. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings. Now, let me tell you, out of all the Western Conference matchups, I think this is the one that excites me the most. I think this is going 7. And I think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to beat the Los Angeles Kings in 7 games. I think the goaltending of Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be the difference in this series. I'd like the Vegas Golden Knights to move on to the next round. The Anaheim Ducks versus the San Jose Sharks. I'm taking the Anaheim Ducks in 6. No particular reason why. I just think Anaheim, I feel like they're on a mission, considering they got to the conference final last year and they want to get to that Stanley Cup final. And I think they're, like the Nashville Predators, they're out for blood this year. Now we're on to the Eastern Conference. The Tampa Bay Lightning versus the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are back in the playoffs for the first time in a handful of years. But I'm taking the Tampa Bay Lightning in this series. However, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it takes 6 for the Lightning to get it done. Next, for the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, let me tell you, it took me a long time to determine who I was going to pick in this series. In fact, this was the one series that was holding me up in this whole process. But I'm picking the Boston Bruins in 7. I think the home ice is going to be the difference in Game 7, especially when it's a Game 7. And the Bruins know what it's like in Game 7s. The Maple Leafs don't, not all of them necessarily do not. I just think the experience that these Boston Bruins have in playoff games is going to pay off in this series as they have more experience than the Maple Leafs. Bruins in 7. We got the Washington Capitals and the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think this is going to be a clean sweep. I think the Capitals get it done in 4. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, the 2-time Stanley Cup, the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, taking on the Philadelphia Flyers, who are back in the playoffs. And I think this series could get very nasty, as it's the Battle of Pennsylvania. It could be. I think this is going to be a bloodbath here. I think there's going to be a major fight in at least 2 of these games. But in the end, though, I think the Penguins advance in 6 games. So that completes the first round. On to the second round. We've got the Nashville Predators taking on the Winnipeg Jets. And I think the Predators actually sweep the Winnipeg Jets here. I'm taking the Predators in 4. I just think the Predators, they're just out for blood this year. They know how close they were to potentially winning the Stanley Cup last year after the heartbreaking Game 6 loss in the Stanley Cup final last year. I think that's weighing on their minds. Next, we have the Vegas Golden Knights take on the Anaheim Ducks. And once again, I'm picking the Vegas Golden Knights in 7. I just think that goaltending of Marc-Andre Fleury will be a difference in this series again. I think I'm getting vibes out of the New York Rangers a few years ago with Henrik Lundqvist single-handedly advancing the Rangers round by round until the luck eventually ran out. So I like the Vegas Golden Knights to move on and play the Predators in the Western Conference Final. Next, we have back to the Eastern Conference. We have the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Boston Bruins. And I'm taking the Bruins in 6. We have the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins now. And once again, the Capitals have second-round heartbreak, so I'm picking the Penguins to win in 7 games. So on to the Western Conference Final. We've got the Nashville Predators and the Vegas Golden Knights. And like I said, with Marc-Andre Fleury and this Vegas Golden Knights, if this were to actually happen, I would get New York Rangers vibes from a couple years ago, where Henrik Lundqvist single-handedly kept advancing the Rangers. In this predictions video, it's looking like Marc-Andre Fleury is single-handedly advancing the Vegas Golden Knights round by round. But unfortunately, the luck ends here, as I like the Nashville Predators to beat the Golden Knights in the Western Conference Final in 5 games. Eastern Conference Final now. We have the Boston Bruins taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I like the Boston Bruins in 7 games. And the quest for the three-peat will be over for the Penguins at that point. So now we're on to the Stanley Cup Final, the Nashville Predators versus the Boston Bruins. And let me tell you, this would be an exciting Stanley Cup Final. Pekka Rinne looking for redemption, and Tuukka Rask looking for redemption from a few years ago. Who is going to finally fulfill their redemption? And winning the Stanley Cup Final, I have the Nashville Predators winning the Stanley Cup Final over the Boston Bruins in 6 games. So let's review this real quick. I was really stuck between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. In fact, it's possible that I think whoever could come out of that Bruins and Maple Leaf series will go to the Stanley Cup Final. I honestly have a strong opinion on that. I think that's my strong take on that out of this whole thing. Whoever comes out of that series between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs will be in the Stanley Cup Final. And also, picking Nashville to win this whole thing. I understand that President's Trophy winners doesn't translate in the playoffs. But if you look at this Nashville team, if you just look at what happened last year, they were the underdog. And now the only thing that's holding me and anybody else who picks the Predators to win the whole thing is now that they're a favorite, everyone expects so much out of them. Because as you remember, last year we had the Blackhawks and the Predators. And everybody thought, the Blackhawks are going to win in 4 or 5. Then we see the Predators just completely demolish these Blackhawks. And they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. Now the pressure is going to be on them. Now the main focus is on them now. Now that they're the best record in the league, now everybody's expecting them to go far. They're expecting them to make headlines in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And when you look at that, I get vibes. This is a different sport. But it reminds me of Wichita State basketball after they made that run to the Final Four, where nobody thought they were going to make it past the first or second round. But they still did. They went all the way to the Final Four. The very next year, they were undefeated throughout the regular season and the conference tournament, and they're the number 1 overall seed for March Madness. At that point, everybody expected them to at least win maybe 2 games in that tournament, maybe get back to the Final Four again. They expected that. And why was that? Because they demonstrated the year before that they can do it. And they had most of the same team. And they ultimately lost in the second round. Could we see the same thing from Nashville? But we have seen some teams in the past where they've lost the championship one year and come back to win it the very next. We've seen that before. I think the Predators can do that this year. So that is my Stanley Cup Playoff Prediction video. I have the Nashville Predators over the Boston Bruins in 6 games. Comment your picks down below. Also like, subscribe, and share. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day, everybody.